Aphids are a common pest attack that happens in most gardens and they could completely ruin all the plants in your garden. So, in today's video, I'm sharing a few different ways to get rid of aphids and to save the plants in your garden. So, do keep watching till the end. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Fresh from My Garden. This is a part of our garden where I'm growing a lot of vegetables in containers. And you might be wondering what this white dust is on all of our plants. So, this is because of an aphid infestation that we have on a lot of our plants. And these are all growing in the south side of our garden. And in the south side of our garden, we have a drumstick or a moringa tree, and every year during this season, once the moringa starts to have new leaves and flowers, there is a big aphid infestation on the tree. And since all of these plants are planted right under it, they all get infected. So, this is our moringa tree, and it's quite tall. And if you look closely at the leaves, you can see yellowing of a lot of leaves and a lot of these aphids on these leaves. So, since all of these plants are growing under that moringa tree, they all get infected with the same pest. Now, since this tree is quite tall and has a wide set of branches, it is very difficult to deal with the entire infection that is infecting this tree. So we try to get rid of the pests as much as possible on the lower branches and treat the soil around the tree so that it can reduce the rate of infestation. And since all of these plants are growing right below that tree, all these aphids are falling off onto our hibiscus plants and a lot of vegetable plants that are growing in containers around the base of the tree. So you can see that the hibiscus buds have all been infected with the aphids, and aphids are a common pest that affect hibiscus flowering plants. Now I have sprayed all these plants with some neem oil pesticide, which is an organic pesticide for all our plants in the garden. That was done a couple of days back, but it hasn't completely removed the pest infection. So, what I have used today here is diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth is a very safe and a non toxic way to control pests in our garden. Diatomaceous earth is a white, powdery substance that is made from fossilized organisms called diatoms, and it is effective against a lot of pests. The first thing that we usually do whenever we see any pest infestation on our plants is using neem oil because it is an organic remedy to get rid of a lot of variety of pests. So we mix a little bit of neem oil and some liquid detergent or laundry detergent along with water. It is diluted at least 10 times and it is sprayed on all the plants, and it is quite effective in the garden. But aphids are a pest infestation that is very hard to get rid of, and once it starts affecting one plant, it quickly spreads over and takes over all the plants in the garden. With an aphid infestation, what we usually see in the beginning stages is yellowing of leaves, and over a period of time, the aphids grow in clusters and then they suck the life out of the plant. Diatomaceous earth is quite effective once they are sprinkled over the leaves and around the soil of plants because they can dehydrate any kind of soft bodied pests, and that way it can kill and eliminate them completely. Every year during this time, we start to see a lot of pest infestation on a lot of plants, especially since the weather is changing. We are having cooler nights, but the days are starting to warm up. And This moringa tree, once it starts to grow new leaves, every year it gets infected with these aphids. And since all the plants that are growing below it get infected along with it, it is very difficult to deal with all of them together at the same time. And the tree is so tall, and we have no access to the upper branches or the leaves, but they are all infected, and all the aphids drop down to the plants below and infect anything that is growing under there. Apart from spraying the branches, the only way that we can deal with this is treat the soil around the tree and then directly treat the plants that are growing below them. The diatomaceous earth is effective as long as it stays dry on the plant. Once there is any water content or once it gets wet, it loses its effectiveness. So every time we are sprinkling this, it's best to let it stay for at least 24 hours before we water our plants again so that it can be effective and get rid of as many pests as possible. As you can see, the aphids are infecting the underside of flowers and leaves. So, when we are sprinkling the diatomaceous earth on the plants, make sure to sprinkle in such a way that there is maximum coverage and we can get to all the areas of the plant where there is any sort of infestation. There are a few different ways in which we can use or apply diatomaceous earth on our plants. We can initially water our plants, and with jet spraying, we can get rid of a few of the aphids from the plants and then sprinkle the diatomaceous earth on the wet foliage. In that way, the powder form will dry up eventually and then it will stick to the surface of the leaves. Usually, what most people do is directly just sprinkle the powder on the buds and leaves or wherever you see an infestation. By just sprinkling the diatomaceous earth onto the leaves, if we are unable to get to the underside of leaves where there might still be an infestation of aphids, we can mix this with some water and spray it on the underside of leaves. But the effect is only once the diatomaceous earth dries up and sticks to the leaves of the plant. Once these have been sprinkled onto the plants, it's better not to water the plants for at least 24 hours to see the full effect of diatomaceous earth on our plants. As you can see, I have sprinkled this on almost all my vegetable plants, not just the ones that are growing under the drumstick tree, because aphids are an infestation that can spread very quickly and can ruin your garden completely. So, check your plants regularly on a daily basis so that we can figure out if there is any kind of pest infestation and deal with them right away before it becomes too big. Now, in my garden, I have used a sieve to dust all my plants, including their leaves, the soil around them, and in the hibiscus plants, I have dusted all the buds because all the new buds have a lot of aphids around them and infecting them. It will not be easy to get rid of all these pests in one application. And after 24 hours, when we water our plant, we need to just spray them thoroughly so that if there are any remains of aphids, they will be removed with force spraying some water on them. Also, check back in a few days to see if any of the infestation remains and then tackle them immediately. Diatomaceous earth and neem oil are very beneficial but non toxic organic ways of dealing with such pest infestations in the garden. We would have to repeat this application at least a couple of times before we get the full result, since it is an organic method of getting rid of pests. So now I'm going to share an update and see the effect after 2 days. After 2 days, we see that the pest infestation on the drumstick tree remains. So now we are cutting off the branches because all of the leaves are heavily infected with the aphids, and they keep coming back and infecting all the other plants in our garden. Whenever there is heavy pest infestation and there is no remedy in spite of spraying different varieties of organic pesticides, the only method is to completely prune back the plant or the tree from which the infestation is spreading on to the other plants. So now we have no other option but to cut back all the branches that are heavily infected with aphids, and that is the only way to stop this from spreading through our garden. There are a lot of branches that hardly have any leaves on them, and whatever has a few leaves on them, all of those leaves are completely infected and totally not usable. So, as we are cutting down these branches of the drumstick tree, and as they are falling down, they are continuing to fall onto our vegetable plants and also onto the fence and infect all the plants around it. So, we'll have to do another spray of neem oil or diatomaceous earth around all of our plants so that it can be completely eliminated this time, and there is no chance of it coming back since this tree has been completely pruned back. The first thing that I'm doing now is jet spraying all my plants because of the aphids that have fallen down from the tree onto these plants. So, jet spraying will eliminate quite a few of the aphids from these plants, and whatever remains will be treated with neem oil spray or diatomaceous earth. So, heavy infestation on plants calls for heavy pruning and removing of all the foliage or the branches which have been completely infected and cannot be rectified at all with any kind of organic pesticides. I hope you found today's video useful. Please do share your thoughts in the comments and do subscribe to my channel for more gardening videos. Thanks for watching Fresh from my garden.